Hello and welcome to this special live on the day of the budget. And many people are a little bit confused about how beneficial is the new tax regime for them. Well, there are some who still swear by the old tax regime, and some say it is the new tax regime that's going to benefit them. And we are going to decode this for you. Joining us is Preeti Sharma. She's a tax partner with BDO India. She brings in years of experience in taxation, especially direct taxation. Thank you, Preeti, for speaking with us. So, first question would be, what is your personal opinion with looking through the looking glass of your experience? How is this new tax regime of this year that's been announced?
Thanks, Anjali, for having me here. And in fact, when I was listing my expectations from budget, one of the priority areas were changes that helps to remove the complexity in the overall tax framework. And new tax regime is actually one of such provision because for individual taxpayers, just think about a situation when you have to first calculate your tax under the old regime, then do the similar assessment under the new regime, and then decide which one is more beneficial for you to go ahead. So, in
Yes.
fact, I was very much expecting some changes in this way of calculation of taxes. And in fact, finance minister has introduced many changes to make the new tax regime as more attractive. Because if you see, this new tax regime was introduced in year 2000. So for last 2 years, there are not many takers of the new tax regime, and most of the taxpayers prefer to file their tax return using the old tax regime. And
Right.
the reason is because for ages we are planning all your investment and expenditure in a way to take all the deductions and exemptions which are there for
Yes.
last so many years, and
We're all
that is the
creatures of
reason.
habit here, and we've all been
Yes.
planning that. And you begin your career and you sort of are brought into this thinking as soon as you come in a tax paying bracket that these are the things
Right.
you have to do.
Right. So maybe the new taxpayers, they may go ahead with a new tax regime because they haven't planned all their investments like that. But then that's one of the primary reason why the new tax regime was not that favored. But this year, the finance minister has brought certain changes. The first change is the tax rates are more attractive as compared to old regime. So if you see
Right.
the old regime, the maximum tax rate of 30% trigger at 10 lakh rupees of income, whereas under the new regime that triggers at 15 lakh of
Right.
income. And again, the minimum income that is exempt from tax under the new regime is now packed at 3 lakh rupees, which was 2 lakh 50,000 earlier. So in a way, if I compare tax rates and slab rate income and tax comparison under both new regimes, new tax regime is better. It's giving better results. But where the issue is that we calculate the tax on taxable income. But then before coming to that number, old regime provides various exemptions and deductions,
Mhm.
right? So if someone's gross income is assuming 7 lakh 50,000 rupees, right? And under the old regime, I will give deduction under section 80C of 1 lakh 50,000.
Yeah.
Plus, there are various other deductions like the interest for housing loan, HRA, LTA exemption, and so on. So after adjusting all that, your taxable income may be much below than 7 lakh 50,000 rupees.
Yeah.
Whereas under the new regime, you calculate tax on 7 lakh 50,000. And that's where the tax saving is not that much under the new regime. So for a individual taxpayers, again, that's where the complexity is, because then you have to see, okay, what investments I have made and where my tax situations stand under both the regimes, and then I decide which one to go ahead.
Yeah. It's too much of maths, I think. For a
Right.
common
Right.
man, it is just too much of maths for him to figure out or her to figure out what I should be doing. Should I be investing and saving something? And will that be and the differences usually are in a few thousands. So, people are not really able to take that decision in a correct manner. But anyway, you did some amazing calculations for us, and you were kind enough to tell us what works for what income bracket. So, if you could give us a bit of an idea of people who are right now in a income bracket of say about 10 lakhs, what should they opt for and why? And how is it different from the old regime, the new regime that was introduced last year, which you said that people did not really, warm up to, and now?
Right. So, if someone has total income of 10 lakh rupees, and I'm saying total income, not taxable income. So,
Okay.
under the new regime, now there is an additional standard deduction that is available for 50,000 rupees. It was not there till last year. This is the new change that finance minister has proposed. So, in a way, you will reduce 50,000 from your total income of 10 lakh, and on that 9 lakh 50,000 rupees you have to calculate your taxes. So if we see 9 lakh 50,000, the tax comes out to be around 54,600 rupees, right?
Okay.
But now under the old regime, my total income stand at 10 lakh rupees.
Hmm.
I'm eligible for standard deduction of
Standard
50,000
deduction.
rupees,
Hmm.
right? So in a way, on 9 lakh 50,000, my tax liability using the slab rates under the old regime will be much higher as compared to
Hmm.
new regime. But I won't calculate my tax on 9 lakh 50,000. I have invested some amount to claim deduction under Section 80C. I have paid interest on housing loan, so 2 lakh
House.
rupees is available as a deduction under Section 24. And if there is a medical insurance premium that you are paying, you're eligible for tax break for that as well. So,
Hmm.
in nutshell, at 10 lakh rupees income level, if all the deductions are more than 2 lakh 50,000 rupees,
Hmm.
then you are neutral. So then if your deduction is 2,50,000, then the tax liability under old regime versus new regime is same. But
Hmm.
if your deduction is more than 2,50,000, then you are better off by opting the old regime.
Hmm.
So that's basically 2,50,000 is the magical number for income of 10 lakh rupees. But if we talk about the income level of 15 lakh rupees, again, if
But
your
but let me
deduction,
just interrupt you here. You said a very good thing here. 2,50,000 is that magical number for income of 10 lakh rupees. But it is a big number also for a person who's earning 10 lakh a year
right,
per annum
right,
to
right.
invest 2,50,000 rupees per annum. Anyway, I just wanted to throw some light on that. Please continue. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely right, Anjali. And of course, it is closer to 25% of your income, which someone ends up investing in saving tax. So maybe at this level, if the investments are below 2,50,000, it's good to go ahead with the new tax regime. That's more beneficial, right? But
Yes.
then if you move up the income level, there is increase in the income level. Then let's take an example of someone who is earning 15 lakh rupees of income. For that person, 3 lakh 58,000 is that magical number. So if someone is investing around more than 3 lakh 58,000 in all investments, and maybe incurring the expenses which are eligible for tax breaks, then yes, you are better off in the old regime. Otherwise, go ahead with the new regime. So
Okay.
that's the
I'll
number of 15 lakh.
So I'll quickly interrupt you here because Rahul Yadav, one of the viewers, he's saying, I'm getting 11 lakhs annually, but I don't invest any money, neither in PPF or in any investment schemes. So which tax regime should I follow? So you answered it, but can you simplify it for him
Yeah.
further?
So at that level, if there is no investment, plus you are not claiming HRA exemption. So you see, I have used the word investments and expenditure. So rental is an expenditure which is again
Yes.
eligible for tax break. So if you're
Hmm.
not claiming any such exemption as well, HRA exemption, LTA exemption, then you are better off in new regime.
Okay. So you cannot take your HRA exemption and LTA exemption in the new scheme. That's part of the deductions which are not there for you. Is that so? Okay.
Not
So that
allowed.
is quite
Right.
an important point. It's not just those ATC and those standard deduction things that were not there last year, but it is actually none of these. So it's just simple calculation. Just don't invest anything. If you're one of those who doesn't like to, a lot of people get very upset with this taxation thing. I have to invest here, I have to invest there, what should I do, how much I will I save, and they get hassled with it. It's actually a source of stress. So people who want to
Yes.
simplify their lives, and someone like Rahul who's not investing anywhere, then the old scheme, the new
You-
scheme, as Preeti just told her, that might be good for you. Anyway, so we've spoken about 10 lakhs, we've spoken about 11 lakhs about Rahul. So we've spoken about 15, I believe. So let's move forward now.
Yeah. So if your income is around 20 lakh rupees, then that magic number is 3 lakh 75,000. So if
3 lakhs.
your deductions and exemptions are more than 3 lakh 75,000, then again you are better off in the old regime. And in fact, now from this level onwards, 3 lakh 75,000 is the number that remain
Yeah.
in debt for any income level. So even someone is earning 30 lakh, 40 lakh, again, as long as your deductions and tax breaks are more than 3 lakh 75,000, you better opt for old regime. Otherwise, go ahead with new regime.
Okay. Okay. So there is a magic number for almost every slab that you of investment that you need to achieve. And if you're one of those who does not invest anything and spends his money and likes to enjoy, the materialistic things, so I think probably or for the unplanned and unorganized people, the new regime sort of simplifies it for you and makes it easy for you. Well, I surely know what to opt for, but this is something the viewers can keep in mind as to what they would like to opt for. That's quite interesting. Now, we've spoken about different slabs, but then there is the highest tax bracket also. People who are earning, in a very, I'm not talking about the kinds that are earning in crores, but there are many individuals in their 40s and the 50s that have reached a certain amount, say about 30 lakhs, which is considered high, but not high enough to be taxed as a very high income bracket. So then, what about people like that?
So for them, again, as I mentioned, 3 lakh 75,000 is the number. So if the HRA exemption, your ATC deduction, ATD deduction on medical insurance, if you have actually enrolled in the NPS, National Pension Scheme, the investment in that, all those are aggregate more than 3 lakh 75,000, you better opt for old regime than new regime.
Okay. Okay. So the old regime might benefit those who have a higher income group and who
Right.
belong to the higher income group. As far as the old regime is concerned, uh, is there any restriction in opting for it, or from switching from one regime to another? What if I opted for the new regime last year, but now I feel that my interest might be better served with the new regime, also the old regime, and I might want to switch? Can I do that this year, this regime, that year, that regime?
It is possible for individuals who are having income other than uh, business profession, right? So for a salaried class, if you have an income from salary, some interest income, house property income, that individual taxpayer has an option to shift the regime on year-to-year basis. So every year you can decide which works best for you and then take up that. What one change that finance minister has proposed in this budget, that new regime will be the de facto regime for everyone. So if you don't opt for anything, your income will be
Mm,
assessed as per the new regime. But
right.
while filing the tax return, if you want to opt for old regime, you have to make that selection. So
Right.
one de facto regime for everyone is the new regime.
New regime.
That's the change that is proposed, and will be there in the tax return forms that will be issued for this year.
Right, right. So you have to be very careful. If you want to opt for the old regime, you have to actively do that. It
Right.
otherwise default will be the new regime for you. Well, one more question has come up from our viewer going as scripted unscripted. They say that they're earning 6 lakhs per annum, but they have a short term capital gain which is around 1,30,000. Now they want to ask if this 1,30,000 amount will be added in his 6 lakh of total salary while taxation or not.
Right. So if 6 lakh is the income from salary, 1,30,000 is a capital gain, and I'm assuming it's a short-term capital gain and hence fully taxable.
Yes, short term.
Then,
Yes.
7,30,000 is the taxable income. But then
Yeah.
one good thing which is proposed in this year, that even if you opt for new regime, you can claim standard deduction. So from
Yes.
that 7,30,000, 50,000 will
52.
be reduced. So balance 6,80,000 is the taxable income. Now the another good news is that there is a rebate what is proposed in this year budget. So any if someone is earning income up to 7 lakh rupees, then you need not to pay any tax because the rebate up to 25,000 rupees is available. So in
Hmm.
this particular example, the taxable income is 7,80,000,
Hmm.
and then that's eligible for rebate. So you don't need to worry about your taxes. There is no tax liability under the new regime in this
Right.
particular case.
Right. Okay. So that should be something that sort of is comforting for scripted and unscripted. Going continuing with the conversation that we are having about the two regimes, why do you think that the government or the tax authorities feel that these deductions or some or these other things need to be done away with? What was the need for such a regime?
So, Anjali, it is again a step towards simplification, right? Currently, we have two regimes available, and we are so used to calculate our taxes in old regime, and we plan our all investment and expenditures. But then the idea is to have a flat uh, basis of taxation where the tax rates are low, but then you use that low tax rate to calculate tax on your gross income. You don't
Mhm.
need to be creative and then plan all the investments to take various tax base. And that's what the intention is, to basically
Right.
simplify the overall tax payment
Right.
mechanism. But of course, we are used to a particular system. A
Absolutely.
sudden announcement that that's no more applicable, and then we are going ahead with a flat rate of taxation may not work favorably for many of us who have planned our investments. So that's the reason it's a kind of transition phase where the government wants to make new tax regime more attractive, and once you have more taker of that new regime, eventually the idea is to only have one single basis of taxation, which is
Right.
flat and simple.
It's simplified. That is the I think the key word here, simplified. We have Dhanush Boga. He's asking us, I have some investments like LIC, PPF, and other kinds of things like that. Now, of course, then their question is which tax regime is better?
So, as I've mentioned, you need to see what is your income level. You need to see how much are you investing in LIC and PPF and other investment avenues, and basis that you decide which works best
Hmm.
for you. So, and I've given various income levels. So, again, mentioning income at 20 lakh rupees, if those investments and all these deductions are more than 3 lakh 75,000, you are better off in the old regime, otherwise
Okay.
opt for new regime.
Okay. Dhanush says his income is 10 lakhs. So
Right.
he,
So
yeah.
for 10 lakh, 2 lakh 50,000 was the magical number.
The magic number is 2,50,000, Dhanush. If you can get that much money together and invest it, then it works for you. Then you manage to save some money. If you're not able to invest 2,50,000, then it's problematic. Sometimes that's also a big problem, as we were discussing, that getting all that money together sometime. Okay, so
Right.
Pragya Tiwari has sent a message, and she's asking, will dividend income be added to their salary or not while taxation is being calculated?
Right. Dividend is now fully taxable. Earlier,
Ooh.
dividend used to be exempt from tax because the companies were paying the dividend distribution tax. But then now, dividend is fully taxable in hands of shareholders. So you have to add that in your taxable income.
Okay, Pragya, I'm sorry, but you have to pay tax on that dividend that you've been earning on the side. Well, Biren Kumar says I'm getting around 15.60 LPA. Which income tax regime will be better for me? I did, I, they're saying, huh, we have not done any investment till now. So they're still deciding. Accordingly, I guess, I believe they might do their investments.
Right. So if basically you need to see what type of, if you're a salaried employee, what type of exemption you are eligible for. If you're paying rent and eligible for HRA, and then planning to invest in up to 1,50,000 in ATC, and then have interest on housing loan. So all those facts you have to see, and then decide that whether it's the old regime or new regime, what is more beneficial. But if someone basically believes in the flat basis of taxation, no investment, no tracking of expenditures, you go for the new regime.
Right. Also, though, I must share something that I believe is that, somehow there was a forced sort of a saving that used to happen. People who were not even interested in doing any sort of an investment or saving, they would be educated by their CAs or their peers who would say, "Arey, why are you not investing in that much? Usme lagayega to itna paisa bach jayega tax mein." And you would not understand what the person is saying, but ek bhed chal mein you would do that. Everybody would be doing the same thing. So there was some sort of a involuntary forced saving, sort of a thing that a habit that was developing amongst people. Do you think with this new tax regime that might be on a decline?
Yes, that forced saving habit may not continue in that way, but I think people also like flexibility. That why to invest in some avenues with the intention to save tax? We should look at the return, and if I'm getting a higher return at some other investment, I would rather like to go with that. So yes, forced saving will not be there, but there will be a flexibility. You can decide wherever you want to invest and how much you want to invest.
And that is absolutely true, because most of the instruments that were tax saving instruments were extremely low yield instruments. And this
Right.
I'm speaking from personal experience as well, that I have at one point of time realized that it's better for me to invest in mutual funds than to go and invest in a tax saving fund where my money would get locked for a longer period of time, and I would actually be losing money on that, and I would compensate by, if I would put it in mutual fund, I would be compensated of that tax loss, whatever I was incurring. Anyway, that's an interesting aspect that I thought maybe I should mention. But I would say that a habit that would have come because of this, the minute you start working, immediately there are certain words that you are bombarded with. HRA, as you said, then
Right.
rent receipts, the medical insurance, a lot of these things that we tend to otherwise I don't know whether the new generations will move towards that or not. Okay, before we pack off, in the end, we just discuss a little bit about the income tax changes that have come. There are a few other things also I saw which could impact people, but I think at a very high rate. I saw something about if you are uh, a sale of a house, if you have a capital gains from sale of a house, I think, or then they have put a cap on certain things
Right.
as to how
Right.
much you can. What is that?
There is section 54 and 54F in the Income Tax Act. And in case you are selling a house, there is a long term capital gain. There are certain conditions that are provided. And if you reinvest the
Yeah.
amount in the house property, then you are eligible for exemption. So
Yes.
you in section 54, you sell one house property, and then whatever is the consideration you invest in the
You
other house
reinvest.
property, you are eligible for tax breaks. What government has proposed, that exemption is now capped at 10 crore rupees.
10 crore.
So
Yeah.
yeah, if the property value of the new property or the amount that you're reinvesting is more than 10 crore, then the exemption is limited to 10 crore.
Right. So you can't sell off that palace, ancient family ancestral palace, and then go
Right.
and buy a new uh, big villa and then expect a complete tax break. This is what the government is trying to tell you. They're saying if you're making high value deals in real estate, you're buying a property which is worth 10 crores or more, then you need to pay your share of tax. Okay, this is quite interesting. Uh, Anything else that you'd like to tell our viewers before we pack off? Anything do you feel which is noteworthy that you need to share with the viewers?
Right. Now, when we're talking about the high value transactions, let's talk about the super rich taxation as well, because there is
Yes.
some relief which is announced for the super rich category of taxpayers. Anyone who has a taxable income of more than 5 crore rupees. So, if you know, there is additional surcharge that was proposed, that was imposed on the super rich category at the rate of 37% on the tax amount. So in the
Yes.
new tax regime, now that surcharge is limited to 25%. So this will bring the tax saving for the super rich category, and for them it makes sense to opt for the new tax regime.
Yes, and I would like to get to know a few friends like that who have a salary above 5 crores. It would be nice to know a few people like that. And since they'll be saving more taxes now, I guess they'll have more disposable income to spend on
On
friends.
friends.
Yes. Preeti, it was very interesting talking to you. You really did simplify this complicated issue of tax for us. And I believe most of our viewers would be now in a much better position to decide whether they want to opt for the old scheme or the new scheme. But as Preeti told us, do keep in mind your default tax scheme is the new tax scheme. You have to actively choose the old tax scheme if you want to go ahead with it. So ensure that you speak to your chartered accountant if you're using the help of one, and figure out how much is your taxation, and then figure out what works best for you. Okay, before we leave, one last message that's come across. Let's just take it. Zishan Kamal is saying, what's the difference between the new tax regime introduced in 2020 versus the new tax regime of this year?
So, one is that the tax rate is lower as compared to 2020 regime. You are now eligible to claim the standard deduction, which was not there till last year. Again, the minimum income threshold that is increased from 2,50,000 to 3 lakh. And one big advantage is the rebate. So anyone who is opting for new tax regime, if your income is below 7 lakh rupees, you need not to pay any tax, which is a big advantage to be assessed under the new tax regime. So all those things are the changes that makes new tax regime more attractive.
Right. And it seems that the government wants most of the people to now shift to the new tax regime, and they are making it more and more lucrative with each passing year, lucrative and simplified. So if you're the one who likes to declutter their life, declutter their files, declutter their computers, then you might like to opt for the new tax regime. Thank you very much, Preeti, for speaking with us. And thank you so much for helping our viewers understand that. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Anjali. Pleasure speaking to
Bye.
you. Bye.